We welcome in Senator Kristin Phillips-Hill from the 28th Senatorial District. Good morning, Senator Hill. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Gary. Doing great. Happy to be on with you and your listeners this morning.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you. We have a number of things I want to kind of hit with you today if we can. And one of the things has to do with York City and talking a little bit about removing blighted property in the city of York. You secured a $300,000 grant through the Commonwealth Financing Authority to assist in blight remediation in the city of York. Tell us a little bit about what's going on there.
Right. The good news is that we were able to get a Commonwealth Financing Authority grant that will go to the city's redevelopment authority to address a number of blighted properties and improve them. You know, they are dangerous in the communities,
right? And
this will improve public safety. It's also going to improve the value of the community, and I think it's a good thing for the city of York and for York County, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's down there on the Penn Street area, by the way, and down in what is known now as Knowledge Park. I go down through there quite often, now at the end of Penn Street. So it's between York College and the historic section of downtown York that they're really going to be doing some work in there. And there are some properties down there that have been sitting there for a while, have been abandoned and so forth. It's nice to know that, we're working to help the city. And, the other part about this is so often, Senator, we've talked about improving York over the years, and we talk about Market Street and we talk about George Street. But once you leave those two streets, there's a sense that, well, maybe they don't matter as much, even though they do. And there have been a lot of changes in that time. And yet at the same time, looking for other ways to fill out the full breadth and width of York is really what we're all about here, right?
Well, I think what's happening at Knowledge Park at York College is incredible. Great economic opportunities there. And that artery through the city is poised for major upgrades that are going to improve the lives of local residents. It's going to improve the vibrancy of the community. And I think this is really going to be a major boost to the economy in York City and York County.
Senate Bill 341. We talk about the broadband bill, and a lot of people say, oh, man, the eyes glaze over, and they say, what's that all about? But broadband and the broadband width and the accessibility that we have are really important. You've been involved in that lately. Tell us a little bit about what's happening there.
Right. So broadband all of a sudden has become a glamorous issue. We've seen an incredible increase in our daily reliance on high-speed internet throughout York County and across the Commonwealth. We're working from home on the internet. We're educating from home on the internet. We're getting health care at home through the internet. And as the chair of the Senate Communications and Technology Committee, my goal has been to identify state solutions to a really complex problem. And Senate Bill 341 essentially removes regulatory barriers to broadband deployment for landline telecommunication providers. Imagine this. Many of the regulations that are in our public utility code, they've been there for over 25 years, and they're not necessary any longer. They're not logical. Think about how technology has changed in the last 25 years. And this will enable them to take the dollars that they have to put into investments that are outdated and don't make sense anymore and allow them to put those dollars into the deployment of broadband, something that people not only want, but they need. Now, you'll laugh at this because I make the analogy that the PUC has been dragging their feet on a rulemaking. So when we first started talking about this, I was over in the House back in 2018, and they said, we're going to issue a rulemaking on this back in 2018. So they received comment, but they really haven't done anything since 2018. And I said, this is almost like the Mount Rose interchange. How many more years are we going to wait for the PUC to finally promulgate these regulations? So the good news is that bill is now out of the House or out of the Senate over to the House, and we hope that we can get it onto the governor's desk expeditiously. And I think it's not a simple solution, but a three-part solution. We need to cut back regulations. We need to increase funding, and we need to bring state assets to the table, and so we can maximize the amount of internet coverage across the Commonwealth. And the neat thing is that yesterday we actually passed Senate Bill 341 and Senate Bill 442 that addresses all three of those, what I call key pillars to addressing the digital divide.
And of course, we're talking too about getting it out to more and more people. And as you said, I think the important point here is that, we're doubling our technology. I remember you say we're double our technology every 25 years now. I would dare say it's probably half of that. I mean, we're doubling it faster than that in terms when you think about cell phone usage, when you think about smartphones, when you think about IT stuff, when you think about our computers. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at my computer right now. If I didn't have that, I don't know what I'd do each day.
Right.
And then you're checking throughout the day wherever you go with your smartphone. So the access to the broadband is so important. You were talking a little bit about the Mount Rose interchange, and every time I ride down the hill to there, if I'm at a golf course or if I'm having to go through there, I get mad. I don't know what it is. It's like every day. Now, it seems it's getting a little better right now. Maybe they're toward the end. But, May 11th, that thing was supposed to be finished, and that was even past due. But that was the new number we had. Well, today is May 26th, and last I checked, we're not finished. Your thoughts about Mount Rose?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Well, Gary, as you and your listeners well know, it has been a great source of consternation for me. And I'm here sitting in my office in Harrisburg. I drove right up through that Mount Rose interchange, and I will give you the latest. It is not completed. And at this point, it needs to be completed. It needs to be completed, right? We are now 3 years past due for when that project was supposed to be completed. It started in 2015. It was supposed to be done in 2018. Here we are, 2021. It's still not done. It's not acceptable. And looking to find a path forward so that it never happens again. And I've said this. I wouldn't wish that project on any of my colleagues and their constituents anywhere in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So we have circulated a bill. That bill says that PennDOT must take into account a company's business practices. If they engage in change order scheming, like we have seen this company engage in that Mount Rose interchange project, then that has to be factored into a decision on whether or not they are a qualified bidder. And here's the thing. It is now millions of dollars overdue. So it's not just 3 years past the due date. It is millions of dollars over budget. And we need to take those kinds of things into account before we award any future projects here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
We're with Senator Kristin Phillips-Hill, 28th Senatorial District here in the state legislature. We're coming out into the light again. I was kidding the other day. I said I feel like the Munchkins after the house landed on the Wicked Witch of the East are all hiding. And then they come out when the Good Witch of the North, Glenda, says, come out, wherever you are. And, we're kind of doing that now. But we're doing it quickly, it seems, Senator. What are you seeing right now as we start to resume life in a normal fashion? Not the new normal, but a normal fashion. Your thoughts? Well,
it's fantastic. And thank you to all of those folks that came out and voted on those questions on the ballot. And the good news is that yesterday in the House, they began the process of doing the will of the people and passed a resolution that would rescind the emergency declaration. We're now in the process of getting the legislation in place. A lot of decisions made by the administration during this pandemic were knee-jerk, not thoughtful. They led to a lot of confusion, and the confusion led to chaos, and we are now working to avoid those very things. One of the pieces of legislation that I'm working on is making sure that Pennsylvania does not create a state-issued mandated vaccine passport. Mm-hmm. We want people who want to receive the vaccine to have every opportunity to do so, but we have been seeing shifting guidance from day one from this administration. So the governor said, well, we're not interested in doing vaccine passports, but we could do vaccine passports. And then his Secretary of Health said, well, we're not interested in doing that. So we want to be proactive. We want to get that legislation in place to make sure that the rights and the freedoms of the people of this Commonwealth are protected as we move forward.
What is going to be interesting is, I'm hearing it this morning in the sailing industry, obviously voyages, they're saying, hey, we're going to ask people to have vaccine passports because we can do that. And, private companies, all right, you're in competition with others. Maybe someone else say, no, we don't want that. And then, they can battle it out as we do so many times in America because of competitive kinds of things. But as far as the government putting the vaccine passport out, I'm glad to hear that because I think, again, it does get into some really murky areas. One of the things that I said during the time of COVID, and you and I talked about this, I think, on the air as well as some other legislators, that the governor assumed certain powers and obviously has continued to assume how long he could extend the declaration and so forth. But you all got to pick up the shrapnel from the decisions that he made. So you got to reap the whirlwind of people calling your office and needing help on various things and businesses out and so forth, and yet you had no part in the decision-making. And to me, that was just common sense when we voted last week to put that power in the hands of the legislature to at least have a role to play. We had the role to play by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. We had a role to play by the executive branch. We did not have a role to play for the legislators during that time. That seemed totally outlandish to me. Your thoughts?
Well, Gary, I think you're exactly right. And our offices were open. We were in that office down in Springfield Township. We were taking those phone calls. We were the people who, when they couldn't get anyone in the administration, was helping resolve unemployment compensation claims, trying to help people get their licensure to do their jobs during this pandemic. We heard from the people firsthand. We were out in the community. Our offices were open. And we recognize when an emergency hits, we need to be able to act quickly. But beyond 21 days, it's important that you talk to the duly elected representatives and senators of the people of this Commonwealth because we are in the communities. We know what's going on. We're listening. And that's an important voice that needs to be heard.
And, one of the things that I think bothered a lot of Pennsylvanians is bunker mentality that the governor took. And I, really did not like that at all. And I felt that, people needed to be out on the front lines there, needed to be out there and doing more than just informing us of what decree was coming at us on that given day. It almost became like the voice of doom. Final thoughts here, about 20 seconds left.
I think that the final thought is that people have had their say at the ballot box, and the legislature has heard them loud and clear, and we will fulfill their message to us and make this happen. And it's so exciting to be able to be out, about, and connecting in person with my constituents once again.
Amen, amen, and amen. It's good to be out for all of us and actually acting like real normal human beings. Senator, thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning. We appreciate the extra segment, and we look forward to talking to you again very soon and hope you have a very meaningful Memorial Day weekend.
You as well, Gary. Thanks again.
Thank you. Senator Kristin Phillips-Hill with us here on WSBA Morning News with Gary Sutton.